Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. The DRF Bets race of the day for Friday, September the 28th is the Grade 3 Eddie D Stakes. It's opening day at Santa Anita, and we're kicking off the late pick 4 with this Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint Prep, and you can play it with a DRF Bets account. Sign up, get a 300% deposit match at bets.drf.com. Here's the field for the Grade 3 Eddie D. We're going down the hill at about 6.5 furlongs at the Great Race Place. You can access free formulator past performances for this graded stakes race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Download them, handicap along with us. We'll take this field in post position order, beginning, Matt, with the number 1 Law Abiding Citizen, a horse cutting back in distance, and a horse that has shown an affinity for this downhill turf course.
I like this horse a little bit in here. If you're looking for a bigger price, why not Law Abiding Citizen? I understand that inside draw, maybe not the best place to be going down the hill, considering your first turn is actually going to be a right-hand turn, but I agree with you. He has an affinity for this downhill turf course, and I'm kind of looking at him from a few different ways. That run 2 starts back, I don't think that was as bad as it looked. He shied away from an opponent. He bounced off the inner rail a little bit. I'm going to basically just draw a line through that, and that was his first start off of a mild layoff. Then he came back in that 2-turn race at a mile and a 16th, and I just thought the pace was really legit in there. And I truthfully don't think he really wants to go that long. I think he's better on this sort of turn back. And again, the fact that he has won going down the hill in the past, I think he's interesting at a longer price.
Like you, I've been a fan of this horse for a while. I do have some class concerns. That last race did come back a little bit weak, but you're right. I think a mile and a 16th is just too far for him. And the price will be right for Law Abiding Citizen, who's going to have to do it against some salty graded stakes company. The 2 is Caribou Club, and I think the mile last time out might have been a little far for him. That was in the Del Mar Mile, and he was just so far back in that race. He came with a little bit of a late run, and one of the other also-rans in that race, Next Chairs, who didn't pick his feet up in the Del Mar handicap, he shipped to Kentucky Downs and won his next start with a 97 buyer. So Caribou Club, a horse that has won graded stakes sprinting in the past at Woodbine, has won down the hill. I think he'll do okay, but are you worried about the pace setup?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a serious, I don't want to say a serious lack, but I don't think it's going to be a ballistic pace early on, and I think that could compromise some of these horses coming from off of it. The other thing about Caribou Club, about that Del Mar race most recently, I don't think the 2-turn configuration is ideal for him. I think he's capable at a mile. We've seen him win. He won at Laurel earlier this year going 2 turns, but I genuinely think he is a better 1-turn kind of horse. Now, we'll find out. Who knows if he's going to take to going down the hill, but I think this is probably what he's sort of been cut out to do all along. I've been a fan of this horse. I think he's okay. If he runs back to that Connaught Cup 3 starts back, he's got a puncher's chance.
Never been off the board sprinting on the turf in his career. I think he'll improve in here at a decent price, perhaps best used underneath. The 3 is the big name in the race. It's last year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner. It's Stormy Liberal. You can forgive anybody that didn't watch the replays of the last 2 races and just looked at the past performance lines and said, boy, Stormy Liberal was in a dogfight both times. I disagree. I watched the race, and those are 2 of the easiest nose wins you're ever going to see. Drayden never took the bat out.
No, cruise control, especially in that green flash. It was one of those things where I looked at it and I said, I tweeted afterward, Richard's boy's got to be sick of seeing this horse show up. He's his uncoupled stablemate in a number of these events, and Richard's boy could very easily be a Breeders' Cup winner if not for Stormy Liberal. Stormy Liberal's just a cool horse. He shows up and runs each and every time. Doesn't matter distance, configuration, you name it, he's going to show up. I have to be honest, I mean, he deserves to be the favorite in a race like this, deserves to be the horse to beat, and if he runs well enough here, there's no reason to think that he's not going to be a legitimate threat at Churchill Downs in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
I can't really argue as well. The trip worked in the green flash. He was able to save ground. He came out at the right time, but again, it was just so easy the way Drayden showed tremendous amount of confidence in handwriting him all the way down to the wire. He knew he had a better horse than Richard's boy. This horse, as you mentioned, way the horse to beat and the likely favorite. The number 4 is 3-5 India, who's going to try turf for the first time. Now, his sire, Street Hero, does okay with first-time turf winners, 14% winners, but the dam never raced on the surface. She's foaled 2 runners to try it. None have won. I just don't see a lot of grass in this pedigree.
No, and to be honest with you, I mean, through 16 lifetime starts, it's not like he's incapable of running well. He's won 4 times. He's finished 2nd or 3rd on 6 other occasions. They also make an equipment change with the blinkers coming off. To me, this feels like they're just taking a shot to see if this is something that can wake this horse up, because I feel like if Chad Brown thought on the East Coast that he could step on turf, he would have done that. We know what Chad's capable of doing on the turf. I understand why Phil D'Amato's taking a shot here, because he ran poorly in that Pat O'Brien. It was a 4-horse field, and he finished up the track. I think this is just take a chance, and if he takes to it, now you have another option.
Returning off a 9-month layoff is the number 5, He Will. Last seen way back in January, and He Will doesn't have a lot of speed in route races. You have to figure he's going to be really near the tail end of the field in this quick sprint race. Jerry Hollendorfer is limited with positive results, as we see from this formulator fact, with horses coming off 6-month layoffs on turf and cutting back in distance. Over a $7 return on investment. You and I, he had us for a while, and then he lost us, and I'm kind of still off him. I want to wait and see. I think this is a prep for something longer. Yeah,
I agree. I think he is better suited going longer, but more importantly, like you were alluding to, for a while I thought this was going to be a legitimate graded stakes caliber horse, borderline grade 1, especially considering at that time in Southern California, those middle distance horses, they were trying to sort themselves out. And for one reason or another, he just hasn't developed. He hasn't put it all together. I think he's best suited for Calbred restricted races, and especially going 2-turn configuration.
I know that the number 6 Sistron is a stakes winner on dirt around 2 turns, but I think 2 turns in a route distance just a little bit too far for him at this point in his career, so I'm really not going to hold those last 2 losses against him. He usually fires a good shot going down the hill, and I really think it's interesting that John Sadler's putting blinkers on. This horse's best races have come when he's on the lead or close. He may not make the lead in here, but I think he's going to get hustled to get a good position.
I think the blinker's going on too. It's worth noting this is a horse that on numerous other occasions has loomed up and looked like he's ready to roll, and he just doesn't go and finish the deal. So I do wonder if there's a little bit of a lack of focus and an unwillingness to go and pass horses. Now you put the blinkers on. I think maybe there's a scenario where he's a little bit sharper. Look at that most recent drill, 6 furlongs and 12-2. I agree with you. I think he's going to be forwardly placed. I don't think he's fast enough to outright make the lead, but if he is forward and let's say the pace setter falters and maybe the blinkers do the trick, maybe Sistron is interesting at a price.
Turning way back in distance is the number 7 Kenji Storm. Boy, I was disappointed with the way he didn't run in the grade 2 Del Mar handicap last time out. He was coming into that race off a graded stakes placing, and I thought a decent one behind grade 1 caliber turf router It's in the Post, and he just didn't stay at all in the Del Mar handicap. He looked tired. Now he's cutting all the way back. I don't think his route speed will translate to sprint speed. I think he'll be more of a mid-pack runner here. I also think he's a tweener. I kind of like him at a mile better than a 1 3/8 or 6.5.
Flat mile, I've always thought that's what he is, and I've always thought he is a rock-solid sort of optional claimer, high-level sort of allowance type, and unfortunately for him, he is in that sort of tweener range where you don't really want to drop him in for a tag because somebody's going to take him. He's too good, but also I don't think he's quite this good, and we'll find out about 6.5 furlongs. I just thought these 2 most recent races were far too long, but unfortunately 6.5 might be far too short.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this year's Eddie D, and I think you and I will agree to disagree with Timeform US because they have the 9 Touching Rainbows out there on the lead, and Touching Rainbows is a perfectly fast horse, but he's not as fast as Conquest Tsunami. And I think the 8 Conquest Tsunami, who is a proven commodity and just turned into kind of a beast earlier this year when confronted with the downhill turf configuration, this is what he wants to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and he has that sort of early speed where I would just be stunned unless they're on an absolute send mission with Gary Stevens on the outside with Touching Rainbows. I'd be stunned if Conquest Tsunami didn't find himself on the lead. Now, if you want to question, look, his 2 runs going down the hill, he had pretty soft trips. So let's not make it out to be that he's just, an absolute world beater. I think he is. I think he's very good. But if he takes some legitimate pressure early on, I do wonder if we're going to see him crack a little bit. To be fair, though, he has been very, very good sprinting on turf. They tried to stretch him out in that wicker most recently. The pace was off the charts that day. I'm not holding that against him. I think he's ready to go. This is what he wants to do. I just don't know what you're going to get for a price, but I expect him to be out there on the lead.
Matt's telegraphed his pick as we reveal them right now, and that's going to be the number 8 Conquest Tsunami, who we expect to be in front when they cross the dirt patch at Santa Anita and swing into the lane. I'm going to give Touching Rainbows another chance on the turf, and he's still a turf maiden. I thought he ran okay last time out in the Green Flash going 5 furlongs. He really galloped out past the field and past Stormy Liberal, and I think 6.5 is going to be good for him. Now, whether he handles down the hill, that might be a different story, but he's going to be within range of Conquest Tsunami turning into the stretch. Phil D'Amato, a very, very sharp trainer. One thing to note, though, I was doing a little research. This horse made the vet list after his last race with some shockwave therapy. Never really a good sign, but I think this horse at 5 or 6 to 1 is a fair price, and he did some really good things on dirt earlier this year.
I think it's also worth noting that Green Flash, that short comment, off bit slow, I don't agree with that. He got pinched back out of there, and it wasn't so much that he was slow out of the gate. So I think with a clean break and no sort of issue, especially there's nobody to his outside, I think he's going to be a lot closer to the pace than he was that day in the Green Flash. And you're right, he galloped out past everyone down on the inside. I think he is interesting in here. I've never been the biggest fan of Touching Rainbows, but based on what he's done on the main track, based on the speed figure he earned in that Green Flash, with a little bit closer, better trip, I think he is interesting at sort of that middle-ish price that you made mention.
Give me numbers. You're key in the 8 Conquest Tsunami.
I just think, again, pace makes the race. It feels like that's what the MO has been for me all week here with these race of the days, where I look at it and say, he probably goes out there to the front. If somebody pushes him, so be it. Maybe he does crack, but I just think the 6.5 works for him. I'm going 8, 3, 1, and 2.
I'm going to go 9, 3, and 6 in our Grade 3 Eddie D Stakes, the DRF Bets Race of the Day for opening day Friday at the Great Race Place Santa Anita. Bet it. Bet this pick 4 with a DRF Bets account and the 300% deposit match that goes along with it. Easy sign up at bets.drf.com. Approximate post time for the Eddie D, 3:30 Pacific on Friday. Best of luck.